Hello and welcome to everyone tuning in, whether you're starting your day with us or winding down. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm Nadia and I'm thrilled to be your host for today's Microsoft Reactor live stream. Before we dive into the main event, I'd like to remind everyone about the Reactor Code of Conduct. Our aim is to cultivate a positive and inclusive environment for all participants, so let's keep our interactions respectful and supportive. Today, we are joined by Deep, who is a cloud solution architect here at Microsoft. And Deep will be taking us through how to build and test your Copilot prototype in AI Studio. Throughout this session, feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll do our best to address as many as possible. And we'll also share any additional resources and links with you as well. For those who want to revisit today's session, you can catch the recording on our Reactor YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'd like to give a big, warm virtual round of applause to our speaker. Take it away, Deep.
Thank you, Nadia. I appreciate the time and appreciate everyone being here today. So today I thought I'd talk about Azure AI Studio. If you noticed that last time we were going to do a session about creating an AI in production. However, I've decided to slot in this one first, and then we've moved that session to a month away, and I'll give you links to that one at the end of this presentation. But essentially with this one, we're going to be taking a look at AI Studio and understanding how it can help you quickly create chatbots for your use case. Last time this is actually a 3-part series. And last time we actually had a look at bring your own data and some of the Azure search accelerators and how they work internally. Today, I wanted to cover a different accelerator, and this one is a bit more powerful than the one we covered before. And it really comes to show in terms of the capabilities for testing your Copilot and making it ready for production. And then next week, we'll cover how to actually send it to production in terms of safety, how to take care of that, and in terms of just rate limiting and making sure that you're all good to go. That's what the next part will be for. So let's start with AI Studio. What I'll do is I'll do about 10 minutes of PowerPoint now, and then I'll come to the demo, which will take the majority of the presentation. In the middle of the demo, Nadia's just posted the first session. So if you do want to, not right now, but if you do want to tune into that one, feel free to bookmark it. So what we'll do is we'll do a bit of PowerPoint. We'll go to the demo. We'll go to the point where the index is deploying, which is something's going to deploy. It's going to take a little bit of time. We'll come back to the presentation and then continue that. And then we'll go, once it's deployed, we'll go back to that. What I want you to take away from this session is that deploying a POC for a proof of concept for AI shouldn't take that long. So going from concept to inception to actually having a prototype that you can use, we're going to do all of that within this session, or at least as much as we can. I do have a fallback. I do have one that I prepared earlier, but if we need to use that, but we'll see how we go. I'll cover a little bit of things that we already covered in the last talk, just in case anyone missed that. So this slide is mainly about what generative AI can do for you, the 4 main use cases that we've explored so far. So there's things like content generation, where if you're an online retailer, you can generate content for descriptions for your products, as well as some analytics for call centers and things like that. You've got code generation with companies doing amazing things with GitHub Copilot. You've got semantic search, which is what we're going to look at today, which takes the Azure OpenAI service and uses it to improve the quality of search within your organization's knowledge documents. And finally, you've also got summarization, which is a great use case for something like IT support or any support organization for that matter, where you're using service management. You can summarize those tickets and provide numbers and analytics around the things coming in, the requests that are coming in. In terms of generative AI use cases, what we see is that there is kind of this gradient when it comes to the value versus the complexity of the solution that you're deploying. So down here at the bottom is where we're at currently at the moment. And as we go more up and up in this chart, we see that the solutions get more complex, but you also deliver a lot more value to the user. So we're at the very bottom at the moment. So we're just doing summarization and some basic Q&A where we're talking to our data, asking questions. The chatbot can answer those questions using the data it's given. But then the next step after that is to actually start to make decisions on that data, to analyze and interpret the data, uncover patterns, and then identify where to focus on. Obviously, with a lot of human oversight in place, this can be a really powerful tool in order to get your organization working a lot more efficiently. And then as we get to higher levels of this hierarchy, we get into personalization, where the interactions are tailored to the individual. And you can see bits and pieces of personalization already. If you use the Bing chat, for example, it can pull in documents which only you have access to, and maybe your name and certain details from your profile. So bits of personalization is there, but what we're talking about is really personalizing the results, the outputs and recommendations based on your role within the organization. And finally, we've got automation, which is the highest level, which is using agents to sort of automate a bunch of different processes within the organization, which is what we're striving towards. In terms of the Copilot framework, I think I showed this slide before. Essentially, what we're focused on is your data and the models here. We will talk a little bit about foundational models. Essentially, we're going to use GPT-4, but you can swap out that model, and Azure AI Studio lets you swap out that model pretty easily. And what we're focused on today is that AI orchestration bit as well, which orchestrates, okay, you've got all this data and you've got a UI. How do we then connect these two? How do we make a good flow so that when a user asks us a question, we know exactly what they're talking about and we can output the right results? And so that's what Azure AI gives us. It's a portfolio of different services, which is all encompassing. So rather than going to, for example, Azure Search, the GitHub repository, and then deploying it in App Service, and then using all these other different services, Azure AI Studio gives you one place to train your AI, to build and deploy your AI solutions. And then you can use the built-in UI that exists within AI Studio. You can deploy that, or you can build your own custom UI around that API. So yeah, this is about combining different services around vision and speech and document intelligence, which is what we looked at last time, around Azure AI Search, implementing RAG, and even things like Azure Machine Learning. There's a lot that goes on in AI Studio which relates to this, and I'll show you a bit more of that in a little bit. So the public preview is right now out. We might have some announcements coming up for build in a week's time, but at the moment, Azure AI Studio is in public preview, and you can access it at this link. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go to Azure AI Studio and go through bits and pieces of it. We won't get through everything. So there's a lot to cover. There's exploring different models. There's comparing and evaluating data sets. There's improving the chat experience, so testing different bits and pieces of the chat experience and improving it, and then reviewing, deploying, and monitoring. And integrating in terms of APIs, it does expose an API for you to integrate with your other services as well. So there is a lot to cover when it comes to Azure AI Studio. What I want to show you today, though, is how do you quickly build and deploy something. If you want to follow along, feel free to go into your Azure portal, go into ai.azure.com to get started, and you can go into your portal and you should be met with a page like this here. Click sign in, and we'll get deploying in just a second. Awesome, we're at 6:10, so I might just start that deployment, and then we'll come back to this. Awesome. Let me present the window here. Awesome. There we go. So this is the Azure portal that I have at the moment, and I want to start absolutely from scratch. So I don't want to use any of these ones that I've already prepared before. I want to start absolutely from scratch, and we'll start by creating an Azure AI Hub. I do want to keep it moving because we do have a limited amount of time, but we'll just use a resource group that I already have. We'll use Australia East. We'll do AI Hub Reactor. And so that it doesn't conflict with anything else, I'm just going to put a random string of numbers at the end. And yeah, that's all that we need to do. I'm going to leave this as new. You can connect it to your OpenAI service that already exists. But for the demo purposes, I'm going to leave that as new and then just click create. And you'll see how quick this is. So it'll run a final validation on this. And then I'll click create again. And that will initialize the deployment. Remember, everything that I'm doing is in real time. This is not a video like last time. And yeah, let's see how long this takes. So it's going to prepare a few resources for deployment. And once this is done, we should have our own Azure AI Studio. Now, remember, this will deploy the model itself. We do still have to upload the data and index it, which is what will take a little bit more time. And that's the state at which I'll switch back to the slides. It'll still be done within the session, but I do want to switch back to the slides so that we can continue on a little bit more during that time. So now it's deploying a Azure machine learning workspace. What this allows it to do is use those pre-trained models to index the data, and we have code that's readily available. You don't have to mess with that code in order to train or to index the data. We've got pre-trained code that's just available, and we'll be using that within the AI Studio. Awesome. So that's all deployed. And that's it. The deployment is complete. So that took a total of 3 minutes. Let's go into the AI Studio. And this is what we have. So you can see on the top left here, it allows us to create a new project. It tells us any of the connected resources. We will connect more resources in here as we go along. But for now, let's just create a new project. I'll use the default names as is at the moment. And this will just create a new project for us to start to upload data into. Let's give this a second. There we are. Awesome. So the next part is uploading our data. What we want to do is we want to index this data so that we can ask the chatbot questions about the data that we're uploading. So in order to index data, and this can be your organization's data, it can be any random data set that you'd like. You go into the data tab on the left-hand side, you go new data, upload files and folders, and then upload files, upload folder, and then I'm just going to select a data set from my laptop here. Awesome. So that should be all ready to go. I'll just click next, and then the data set that I've uploaded is called Northwind Traders, I believe. It's the same data set as last time. Awesome. So we've got Northwind Traders. We've got all the data in here. You can see the different PDFs. I'll even show you, if I can download it and quickly show you what one of them looks like. So we've got, this is for Contoso Electronics, Northwind Health Plus. They describe some of the standard medical plans and dental services that are covered in these plans. There's this table here which shows us the cost for the employee for each of the different plans, whatever they choose, and some next steps there. So fairly short documents just describing different parts of a benefits package for an organization. Awesome. So let's keep going. So we've uploaded the data now. The next step for us is actually to index this data. Remember, indexing vectorizes the data so that it's easy to search. It's what search engines use in order to find relevant data. So if you have a search term that's within this data set, in order for it to find that search term quickly, for example, how much does the Northwind Health Plus package cost? In order for it to find that search term really quickly, it needs to use an index. So what we need to do is we need to create a new index, and we need to use the data that we just uploaded. And you can see how simple this makes it. In the last time, I didn't quite show you how to get this all set up, but Azure AI Studio makes it very simple to use our own data set quickly. You also can see that if you use any other service, you can do that. If you want to use blob storage, you can just use that from here. If you want to use a storage URL or an AI search index, you can do that from here as well. So it makes it quick to upload your data, to find and upload your data. Now, here's where we get stuck a little bit. We want to select a new Azure AI search service. But the problem is there is no Azure AI search service in here. What I will do is I will connect the Azure AI search service that I already have. And in order to do that, you'll go to the main page here that I just clicked on. And then under connected resources, you'll click new connection. And then you'll get a bunch of different options here. We want to pick Azure AI search. And I've got only one Azure AI search resource, and I will click connect there. And that should connect. Let me just refresh the page to make sure that that has gone through. If it hasn't, what I might do, oh yeah, it has, there you go. You can also, if you don't have any, so if you're going in here and you don't have any resources, it's because you don't have an Azure AI search resource deployed. So in order to do that, you'll need to go into your Azure portal, go into Azure AI search, and create a new Azure AI search service. Yeah, so enter in the name, and you can leave the settings as is. In fact, if you want to create a cheaper service, it's probably worth changing this to basic or even free. That should be enough. 25 megabytes should be enough for this demo. So feel free to set that to free. Click select, and we can deploy the search service. You know what? For the sake of this demo, so that you're 100% certain that I'm not using anything that I've done before, we'll deploy the search service as well. I am not 100% sure how long a search service takes to deploy, so we will see. In case anyone's following along, then yeah, maybe it's better that we wait. Oh, there you go. It's very quick to deploy a search service. So what I'll do is I'll just refresh the page here. And I might connect that other search service rather than this one. So we've got this one here. I'll just click delete. What did I name that one? Search service 1. Perfect. I named it search service 1. Interesting. You do weird things when you're presenting. It must be this one. Yeah, it must be that one. Okay, let's add that connection. I've never actually done this with a free search service, so this will be the first time. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, we might have to come back to this. Let's see if it's, there you go. Let's add that in now. Okay, let's go into this again, the project that we were setting up. And then let's go into indexes and create the index. So we need to select the files. So this is the stage that we were up to. And you can see now we've got service 1 in here. This is the index name that it will create. We can auto select a virtual machine. This is only temporary while the index is creating. It'll need some sort of compute resource in order to create that index. Add vector search to this search resource. That's all good. Select an embedding model. Yep, that is all good. And let's click next. So that embedding model you should have as well. So when you created this project, when you created this AI Studio, it already created an Azure OpenAI resource for you. It knows you're going to use Azure OpenAI. So created that for you. And yeah, we've created an index now. Awesome. Let's see if this works with the free AI search resource. Now, this is what takes a little bit of time. So what I might do is I might swap back to the slides while this is working. You can see on the right-hand side here, it has 3 different steps. Actually, it's probably worth going through this part. So if you click on job details, it actually takes you to Azure ML Studio, which is where this job is running. The job, what it does is it runs a Python script to chunk your data into smaller bits. Because as we know, the context window for GPT-4, although it is 250K, I believe, but it's not crazy. So we do need to, for huge documents, we do need to chunk them in order to make sure that it fits within that token length. Northwind Traders data. Yeah, so that's the data set that it's retrieved. It's right now chunking it. You can see here, crack, chunk, and embed data. So the embedding will turn the data set into numbers, essentially, so that it can be used for search later on. And then it updates the index here, and then it registers some assets. The really cool thing is that if you double click on this step, you can actually see exactly the code that's running. And if you look at, yeah, you can see the logs here as well. There's your logs. The code is right there. It's staring me right in the face. There you go. Right there. And this is all customizable. So if you wanted to change this process, you could create a clone of this process and then add your own code, essentially. So split it out in a different way. It's all customizable in that way. By the way, if you do have any questions, feel free to pop those through in the chat. I'm here to answer. And yeah, as we go through, because this will take a little bit of time to deploy. I'll just take a break, bit of water. And we'll continue with the presentation. Awesome. Let me just swap back. Present, stop screen, share, that one. Easy. Let's jump back into the presentation. Thanks, Nadia. So essentially, Azure AI Studio gives a uniform platform. There we are. Awesome. It gives a unified platform for developing generative AI applications. What that means is that you get your data and you get your building experience, so your build and deployment experience, all in one studio or one platform where you can deploy everything. It's one SDK, one studio. You have to set it up once, and you get access to all these different resources, as I showed you there, like Azure AI Studio, OpenAI, Azure OpenAI Studio, AI Search, the vision models, the audio models, you get everything under one roof. So it makes it really powerful and an easy way for someone who's onboarding onto the platform to deploy this quickly. So you're going from individual SDKs, maybe you've used Azure Search, the GitHub accelerator that we have, or you're coming from the CLI or deploying it some other way, or just using the API that Azure OpenAI provides. Maybe you're coming from that. This gives you a single software development kit, a single CLI, and you've got one UI to build and deploy all your AI. So it's really a game changer when it comes to deploying models quickly, deploying proof of concepts quickly, because before you had all these different services which you had to merge into one by yourself. You can see here we've got a lot of pre-built capabilities within AI Studio. We've got a lot of orchestration capabilities. The one we'll focus on today is actually prompt flow. But you can also use semantic kernel or LangChain as well. And you can look at our documentation for that. And you can run experiments. What I always say is that, look, no model is perfect. And what you want to do is you want to run experiments. But our customers, the challenges that they've had is that they've had someone in their testing team to actually sit there and run all these experiments one by one. That can be very time consuming. You might list out all the prompts that are relevant for your organization. But the challenge is that now every time the model changes or you tweak the prompt flow, how do you run end-to-end testing to make sure that that hasn't broken something else, another prompt? And it's also really hard to test AI in general because it's so random. If you tweak the randomness a little bit, you get to a stage where no two outcomes might be alike. So it becomes very difficult to test and experiment and make sure that the AI is deterministic. So in that sense, Azure AI Studio actually helps you run those experiments at scale. You can put in a CSV for the different questions that you want to ask your chatbot, and then it evaluates and it tells you what the answers are for each one of those in one screen. So you don't have to go and do that manually every time you change something. And then there's obviously a lot of other model tuning customizations. You can actually run Llama 2 or Hugging Face or any of these other models in Azure AI Studio. So it's not just that we're supporting GPT and GPT 3.5 and 4, we're also supporting all these other models. So you can bring whatever you need to. We'll go through this in a second, the model catalog. But essentially, this lets you try different models in your use case to make sure that it works for you. Move seamlessly between UI and code. So this slide is about making it easy to visualize what you're doing in terms of different prompts and the flows between prompts. And this is what we'll go through today. Getting started with sample GitHub repositories. So this one here is the AI Studio Copilot sample. It's actually built into AI Studio now. These things are changing so fast. You can use this repository if you like, if you want to work with code. And if that's that's what you want, you definitely want some code, you can use this repository to get started. But there is a way in AI Studio that's built in order to get started with AI Studio, and it doesn't involve tinkering with, I wouldn't say any code. If you want to use Python, you can use Python to parse some of the queries, some of the JSON output from some of the queries, but it's optional. Developer tools for building generative AI applications. So there's a bunch of different developer tools that's part of Azure AI Studio, and it helps you to accelerate, build, and deploy these chatbots quickly. I think the key word is quickly, because a lot of companies are doing rapid prototyping for these chatbots. So we want to help you to deploy these things fast. Awesome. Some of the use cases that we've seen that are great for AI is things like enterprise chat, where you're using a knowledge base that you might have. speech analytics, where you're analyzing recordings perhaps from meetings or from customer interactions to see what people are saying. These two are sort of related, enterprise chat and build your own Copilot. Content generation for, we've covered this one before, and then personalization for sales and marketing. Create LLM-based conversational interface that can quickly and seamlessly help users with comprehension, tasks, and decisions. Let me just quickly have a look at how our index is going. It is still, oh, hold on. I think it's just completed. We'll give it a little bit more time. Enterprise chat. So you can add your own data in here, and we'll play with this playground in a second. Yeah, we'll get to that one in just a second. So enterprise chat with multimodality. What this slide is talking about is that you can use any model. You can then use any of our services, and then you can calibrate the prompting logic in AI Studio using prompt flow and using any of the connectors that we have available to you in prompt flow. So you can use the AI search connector, for example, to get information from your data set, use Python to parse that information to extract the relevant pieces, and then output the most relevant results. And then this also gives you great support in terms of deploying and monitoring usage and diagnosing where your chatbots are, maybe they're taking a little bit too long on certain steps. It allows you to do that. We've already covered this RAG pattern in the last talk, but I'll cover it one more time. You have your application. The user asks a question to the orchestrator. The orchestrator is an app that's running in Azure App Service, perhaps, or it's running on a VM. It's basically a React app that has a server-side component to it as well. That then queries the relevant content for the user's question. So it goes to Azure AI Search to query that, and then the search results are brought back to that orchestrator, and then the orchestrator talks to the large language model using the knowledge that it's learned from the Azure AI Search. And that's those documents that I was showing you before. That could be your company's documents that it's bringing back. So it then takes that to the large language model and says, hey, can you output a proper response for me given this knowledge? And then the large language model gives back the response from that and answers the user's question. We've just gone through this, how to import your own data source. You can see there's a lot of different data sources. There's even Elasticsearch, Cosmos, blob storage, web page. So if you just want to get data from your website, go for it. There's a web page data source connector as well. What we want to do is we want to, this is the flow that we want overall. So we've got the user asks a question, go to the search index, get the result back, go to the large language model, get the result back from that. Just covered this, so hopefully that's clear. Okay, I'm going to take a bit of a pause there because I know I'm boring people to sleep. What I'll do now is I'll go back to the Azure AI Studio because that's done deploying, and we can have a play around with that. Awesome. So we are actually exactly where we left off. This is the Azure AI Studio. You can see here, it's finished deploying. It's all done. So yeah, we've got all this source data that has been uploaded. We opened one of them before. This is what that looks like. So we've got all the source data. It's all been uploaded. That is awesome. The next thing that we might need to do is create a deployment unless one is already there. It's there. We might need to create one for OpenAI though. Let me show you this anyway. So this is where you choose your model. You've got so many different models here to choose from. You've got Llama, you've got Meta's models, you've got Mistral, a bunch of other open source ones here. But the one that we want to pick is, let's just do GPT 3.5. That should be fine. For our use case, we can do GPT 3.5 Turbo, so we are using the fastest model. Awesome, and let's deploy that. Okay, so that's connected. We've got two different ones here now. We've got the text embedding model, and we've got the GPT model. Now, remember the difference between these two. The text embedding model only does embeddings. So it'll turn your PDFs like this into numbers and store them in the index. But in order to in order to have a large language model to actually infer that and to generate text, we need the GPT 3.5 Turbo model. So that's what this one does. Cool. So that is done. I don't think we'll need any content filters yet. I might cover that in the next session. Let's go into the playground and start actually deploying something. So, this is new, safety system messages. Awesome. This is so cool. I actually didn't know this even existed. This is new. So you can just say you want to avoid jailbreaks and manipulation. You click insert, click apply changes, and now it should be applied to your system message. I'm not sure why it doesn't show it here. It might be just in the background, but yeah, this is new. So play around with it, see what you can do. Awesome. So let's add our own data. We've got the index available to us here. So we'll click on that. And that is it. We have a chatbot. We have a working chatbot with the data that we had. So let's ask it a question. Maybe we ask it something simple like, do a cost comparison of the Northwind Standard and Northwind Health Plus plans. Plus and Northwind. Okay, now let's all cross our fingers and cross our toes and hope the AI responds with something good. Okay, it does seem to have responded already. We can see how fast that was. It's very quick to respond. It's still responding, and that's why it's a bit slow. I'm also sharing screen, so do be mindful of that. Okay, it doesn't seem to have done a cost comparison exactly, but it has given some cost considerations. It's got some comparisons of coverage, which is good. It's also got some notes about provider networks. Out-of-pocket costs are lower when using in-network providers. That's fine. So the other thing that you can actually do is if you go into advanced settings, you can change the number of the amount of retrieved documents. Now, this might be a bit too much for 3.5. I think up to 10 documents is okay, but beyond that, it might be a little bit too much for 3.5. Maybe we'll rephrase the question a little bit. Maybe I'll try something a little bit different. So how much does the employee-only Northwind Standard plan cost? Let's see what it gives. Should be 45. Okay, it hasn't picked up the $45 per person. Fair enough. I don't think it's gone to the benefit options. It's gone to the benefit details page. And this is how it shows you that it's definitely not perfect. It might also be because I've used GPT 3.5 for this demo, but the results that it's giving me are from these two PDFs here. You can see though how quickly you can get something deployed in this. And the next step that we'll do will actually help you fine tune this a little bit more. So let's keep going. How do we fine tune this? How do we make sure that we take the prompt that the user has given us and change it slightly? So let's go and create a new chat flow. That's what we want, by the way. So we want to go into prompt flow. This is what lets us do have this cool UI to like connect different prompts together, and you can string them together, and you can have one's output flowing into the other one's input, and you can make sure that you can tweak the responses that you're getting from these. So we want to use a chat flow because we're trying to target the chat API, but if you wanted to use a standard flow for the completion API, you can do that here as well. We'll just do flow 1. I am aware of the time, but this shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. And then I do want to leave 10 minutes at the end for questions as well. Okay. Let's hope this doesn't take too much longer. Otherwise, we may have to go to something that I created earlier. In fact, let me load that one up just in case. This is in preview, by the way, all this functionality. So let's see if it created, not yet. Okay. This is just a different Azure AI Studio that I deployed earlier, just in case something doesn't work. It might also take a little bit of time because flows are quite complex. But let's start going through this flow here, just so you get an idea of what a flow looks like. And then we'll go to the other screen in a second. So I think it was the chat one. Maybe that one. Let's have a look. Oh, this one's loading as well. Perfect. Okay. So this is one that I created earlier. This is one flow. It's not the one that I was after, but essentially what this does is it takes the inputs that the user has given. It has a prompt at the top, so you can modify these flows, by the way. It has a prompt at the top, the chat history, what the user has given, and what the assistant has outputted. So this is all chat history. And then that's the latest input. And then it does a lookup here in the Azure AI Search Index, and it gets back some results. There was a different one that I had, which was a little bit more clear. So let's see if we can find that one. Maybe it's this one here. Our new one has loaded, by the way. This is the one, yes. So what this one does is a little bit interesting. So it gets the user input here, and it asks the chatbot a simple question saying, is the user's question related to one bank or more than one bank? This was for one of our FSI customers, and they were trying to determine, they're a comparison sort of website, and they were trying to determine whether when a user puts in a query, is it related to one bank or is it related to multiple different banks? And if so, which bank is it relevant to? So here I'm saying, give the answer in JSON, list out the banks that the user is talking about in this query. So let's see if there's an example here. Yep, there you go. So the inputs here that I said was, there you go. So this is a query that I ran earlier. It's called compare Suncorp and NAB. That's the query there. I'm not sure if you can see it. It might be a little bit dark, but that's what that says. And then here you can see in the output, it's actually outputted JSON. and it's outputted the two banks in here, Suncorp and NAB. And guess what we can do with JSON? By the way, this is forced to be JSON. So I've just said response format is JSON object. So this will always return a JSON object. And then guess what you can do with JSON? You can put that into Python. So then we go ahead and just, in this case, all I'm doing is putting and between the two banks here. So Suncorp and NAB. This is more so that I can create a query with this. So you can imagine you could run an SQL query, or you could run, maybe not an SQL query, you might be going into SQL injection territory there, but you could run a query on your index to see results for certain banks. So in this case, that's what I've done. So I've put an and between them. So you can see here, Suncorp and NAB, and then I've put the whole prompt in here. So that's what this does here. Cool. The next thing it does is it does a lookup in the Azure AI search index for those two, for the query, for the banks. And then it filters the results for a specific bank. So in the results, it looks for the search results as a list. And it also has the bank in here, which is from earlier. So it has the bank name in there. And then it looks if the bank is mentioned anywhere within the URL, which is the file name of the search results. So you can imagine how a flow like this could be really helpful to fine tune those edge cases of your LLM. Let's create one of our own. We don't have that much time, but we can create a quick one. So this is the new one that I've created. At the moment, it does absolutely nothing. It just says you're a helpful assistant. It gives it the chat history and the user's question. Let's do, we do have to select the runtime here in order to create a connection to Azure AI Search, which might take a few minutes to create. In the meantime, if there's any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I'll just answer questions as I go along. I can see someone asked, can a user modify the LLM prompts? That's an interesting question. So I'm assuming you mean that the end user, so the customer that's using this, they can't modify the prompts. The prompts are modified by people internal to the company. So the administrators of AI Studio, so whoever has control of this, you can control the prompt. So this, for example, is the prompt here for this flow. And yes, you can 100% customize it. You can use the prompts from Playground and you can customize it there as well. Okay, that runtime is still not connected. We can just fill out a few of these here. That's all good. Let's just say we want it as a JSON object. And then let's say answer. Yeah, so it's still creating the runtime, so that's why it might take a while. But essentially, you can create a flow like I showed you with prompt flow, where one query's output is passed into the input for other queries. So here, for example, we're taking the bank result and we're passing it into the final chat output, as well as into the prompt that we're querying in Azure AI Search. What I might do is I might just pause there for any questions. There is 10 minutes left, so we don't have that much time. Also, the runtime is still getting created. So I might take a pause there for any questions, and then I'll come back to this if we have time at the end. One of the other things that customers ask me a lot is, what do I do if I'm not getting the answers that I want? In that case, I'd say go into this is that one there. Let's have a look at this one just so that we don't disrupt anything there. Go into the evaluation tab, and you can create evaluations in here to check the performance of your AI models. So in this case, you can download a template. So I can select the flow that I have there, and then you can use a data set. You can download a data set, template data set, and then create a data set for all the questions that you want to ask this chatbot. It will then run those questions on the chatbot and let you evaluate the metrics automatically. And you can see on the front screen there what it gives you. I don't have one ready right now, but what I might do is for the next part, for part 3, we might look further into this, as well as further into content filters as well, which is something that you'll need to productionize your AI. This is still creating. We might have to, oh, there you go. That's now created. Awesome. So let's validate and parse input. Okay, that's all parsed. We can create a quick Python script to maybe extract. In fact, let's not even do that. Let's just go directly to an AI search or an embedding model. Sorry, not that one. Index lookup, that's the right one. This will allow you to query AI search, the search index. And then you can select your index up here. And you can query that index. Content field, embedding field. You can see it's automatically filling these in pretty much. I don't even have to do anything. Semantic configuration, embedding type is Azure OpenAI. That one, and that one. Perfect. It's basically filled it in by itself. Awesome. Now, in terms of queries, we will, maybe we won't output in JSON because just for the sake of this, let's output. I was going to do something in JSON, but I don't think we have the time. What? Something like that, perhaps. And then you'd use the chat one. So, oops, chat.output there. So it inputs that, and then it has an output. So you want to use chat.output for that. That's the query that goes in. So you can see here it's building out the little diagram as I go through. And let's do a hybrid search. And we want to, and that's it really. We can just chat with our data like that. Now, for some reason, this one is connected to the chat and not to the output. So we might have to change that a little bit. Oh, there it is. So the output is not chat.output, it is index1.output. Now this will output JSON because that's what index1 returns with. But let's just do a quick test to see what happens, and then we'll just finish off here. I realized I spelled Northwind wrong, but that's okay. AI search should fix that up for me. You will notice that this is a bit slower, and the reason for that is because it's running this flow. Once you do deploy the flow, it will be faster. It's just because it's it's not yet deployed. Should probably also click the save button. Oh, there you go. I told you it'll be JSON, but yeah, that does work. So that outputs the outputs from the second one. Yeah. Now you can use Python in order to parse this. You could give this to OpenAI and it will select the relevant bits, anything you want. I think the world's your oyster in terms of what you want to do with these different blocks, but essentially we now have a platform to play around with different prompts, to play around with different scripts that we might have. And yeah, we can do that all in this platform. Someone asked about Flowwise. I am not quite sure about that one. I'm not sure what the question is that you're asking. If you're asking about Flowwise, if it's the same as prompt flow, I'm not too sure. I haven't used it before. The ones that I do have experience with is Semantic Kernel. And that one has been quite similar, but prompt flow is way easier to get started with. I had a lot of trouble getting started with Semantic Kernel because you have to install all these dependencies on your laptop. But with prompt flow, it's all in here and ready to use. Awesome. So what I might do is I might stop sharing and just show you my face. And yeah, just let me know if there's any other questions, but otherwise we will leave it there for today. Thank you so much for coming. What I might show is one last thing, which is the next session in this series and how to register for that. So I did have quite a few more slides, but that's okay. This is the next session here. The session will be on 12th of June. It'll be on 6 p.m. and we'll be looking at more around how to create a production-ready Copilot. So this will be about, as I mentioned, we'll definitely go through content filtering and safety. We'll also go through the evaluation set in here in AI Studio, and we might even take a look at some other things like injections and prompt injections and so on. So we will also be joined by another co-host as well, so I'm quite excited for that. His name is Mustafa, and he'll be joining me for the session next time. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And yeah, hope to see you in the next one. Nadia, take it away.
No worries. Thank you so much, Deep. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Don't forget to scan the QR code to attend the third session. But yeah, it was a really great session. So thank you so much. And you're right on time as well. How good is that?
Awesome.
But thank you all. If you do have any questions, I will forward them along to Deep post-session. But I hope you enjoy your evening or afternoon or wherever you are. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone.